Also related to the assassination is now maybe a sense that people have that the kind of people that Trump has nominated to lead some of our law enforcement agencies maybe are not very competent. I mean, there were a number of missteps during this investigation, or at least it seems that way. False information, leaks, but with wrong information, having to backtrack, arresting the wrong people. If not for this family who actually took responsibility and handed in their son, who knows how long this would have taken, given kind of the disorganized, haphazard way that this was all handled. And the ability of the people at the top of the FBI to do their job has now been put into question. When you appoint Patel to run the FBI, to be the FBI director, no law enforcement experience, none, zero, zilch. A critic of the FBI, a MAGA conspiracy theorist who has zero, zilch qualifications to run the agency. Well, surprise, surprise, he doesn't do a very good job at it. When you appoint RFK to run Health and Human Services, don't be surprised if bad stuff happens. When the deputy of Patel is a podcaster, a bad one at that. Again, a emotionalist, right-wing MAGA conspiracy theory nutcase. He's deputy director of the FBI. Knows nothing about law enforcement. Knows nothing about how to run an investigation, how to manage people. Neither of these guys have managed people. I mean, the whole thing is, as somebody called it, it was a Mickey Mouse operation. Even Chris Rufo is now critical of Patel. Chris Rufo, who is a huge supporter of everything Donald Trump does and is a real partisan of the right. Here's what he wrote. I'm grateful that Utah authorities have captured the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination and think it is time for Republicans to assess whether Patel is the right man to run the FBI. He performed terribly in the last few days, and it's not clear whether he has the operational expertise to investigate, infiltrate, and disrupt the violent movements or whatever ideology that threatens the peace in the United States. Now, I don't know what Chris Rufo did, what his position was when Patel was nominated, but it was obvious at the time, and I mentioned it, that Patel had none of the operational expertise necessary to investigate, infiltrate, and disrupt violent movements. He had none of the qualifications to run the FBI. That was obvious from day one. But they went along, just like they went along with RFK, just like they went along with Bondi, and a bunch of other unqualified individuals to run parts of the government, important parts of the government, FBI, Department of Justice. Chris continues. This is on a different trend. There are two ways forward. First, we enter a spiral of violence which could be catastrophic for the country. Second, federal law enforcement makes a credible plan to resolve the civil order, to restore the civil order, initiates a campaign to disrupt domestic terror networks in all 50 states, and sets them in motion with the goal of preventing further bloodshed. all of which can and must be done in a principled, legal, nonpartisan manner. I mean, this is so refreshing from Chris Rufo, who just yesterday was hyper partisan and suggesting of extra legal stuff to do. So I'm glad Chris Rufo has been brought in line somehow, or brought himself into line. But here's the thing, and this is important. If you read this, you would think that behind the latest act of violence, the church killing by the trans, the killing of Charlie Cook, and many of the other political violence, even the killing of by somebody from the right of the 2 Minnesota state officials, that there was some, how did you call it? Some terror network that made all that happen. But in every single one of the cases, with the exception of January 6th, where it was an actual network that made it happen, but with the exception of January 6th, every single one of these other events, whether they were committed by somebody from the right or somebody from the left, did not involve a network. They involved lone, crazy individuals. And maybe not crazy, maybe evil is the right word. Lone, evil individuals. So, what is the damage being inflicted on the country right now by domestic terror networks? Now, if they exist, and I'm sure they do, by all means disrupt them and do whatever you can to neutralize them. But in writing it like this, it's suggestive that what's happened to Charlie Cook and what's happened before Charlie Cook, other acts of violence, were a consequence of terror networks, and they're not. They're just not. He continues. We would be wise to take a moment and ask whether Kash Patel has what it takes to get this done. I think the answer is clear, no. I've been on the phone the last few days with many conservative leaders, all of whom wholeheartedly support the Trump administration, and none of whom are confident that the current structure of the FBI is up to this task. All I can say is good for Chris Rufo for saying this. I disagree with Chris Rufo on a lot of things, just like I did with Charlie Cook, but disagree with him on a lot of things, and even with some of the implications of what he's writing here. But the fact that he's come out against Kash Patel is good, it's right, it's just, and good for him for doing it, because the fact is that usually these tribalists toe the tribal line. And Chris, as one of the tribal leaders, is now establishing a new line. So maybe there's a chance Kash Patel is out if even Chris Rufo is going after him. All right. I mean, here's a headline in the Wall Street Journal from this morning. Law enforcement officials sow confusion on manhunt for Cook shooter. Contradictory public statements risk undermining confidence in investigation, law enforcement veterans say. I think that's probably a reasonable assessment.